So what's the relationship with Mitch and Trump at this point? We know that it's all strained. Even like establishment Republicans, whether it's a Romney or a Pence or a Mitch, these establishment Republicans, where are they with Trump these days? Mitch specifically, though.
No, I think the relations there's a Cold War between Mitch and Trump. And partly it's that Trump calls Mitch like you broken old crow and names like that. And I don't think he should do that, to be honest, but he does do that.
He ain't the only one, Dinesh, that's getting a nickname from Trump.
Yeah, so he does that stuff. And then Mitch is an old establishment guy, and I don't think he likes it. And he's... So there's a very uneasy relationship there.
Who do you think has more power within government, within like the actual senators and representatives? A McConnell or a Trump?
McConnell.
Really?
McConnell has more power on the legislative process, but to be honest, Trump has far more power with the base.
With the people.
Yeah, with the people.
Of course. So if Trump does get reelected, right? I mean, we're fast forwarding. How's that relationship going to work? Because it's so beyond strained at this point, assuming McConnell's still there in the Senate.
At some level, I mean, look, they're similar.
And he might be the Senate Majority Leader if they take it over in 2022, next week.
Yeah, there are similar strains on the Democratic side. They're not as obvious. The media doesn't cover them. The truth of it is both parties can function with some levels of strains because they're united by, a philosophy, less government and more personal liberty, and and they're united also by their hostility to the other party and the bad stuff that comes out of the other side. So to me, it's not impossible that Trump and McConnell could work together, although I think that there is likely to be at some point a movement to challenge McConnell, in part because McConnell is also getting really old.
Right. But it's way more strained on the right, meaning like the McConnell and Trump situation is way worse than like a Schumer, Pelosi, Biden situation. I don't even think it's comparable, right?
Yeah, that's right. That is right.
Yeah, I brought up McConnell simply because that's the narrative that sliver of the Republican Party that is over Trump, by their own words, not by my accusation, by their own words, is there. But where in the Republican Party are those people that would like to see an investigation, simply to do what you're saying? Hey, let's go count it. Let's let law enforcement dive in. Let's go look at the data, and let's all sit back and get away from the microphone and posturing and hypothesizing, and let's look at data. Who in the Republican Party is with you to say, hey, let's go look at this, and if the data is credible, let's show it?
So that would be, by and large, the people in the so-called MAGA, Make America Great Again, wing of the Republican Party. Classic example would be right now, I think it's possible that all the four major candidates in Arizona will win. It could be three. Maybe Blake Masters will lose to Mark Kelly, but I think Carrie Lake will win her race. Mark Hamadeh will win for Attorney General, Mark Finchem for Secretary of State. So all those guys are major advocates of 2,000 Mules. They came to our screening. They've talked up the movie. So this is the kind of new face of the Republican Party that will be like, we need to have an investigation. We need to have hearings. Now, admittedly, Carrie Lake's running for governor. She's not running for Senate or for Congress, but that's the sensibility we're talking about.
So it's the Lauren Boeberts and stuff that are on the congressional side.
Yes, but it's not just that. It's also people who are more to the mainstream. I mean, I've had Steve Scalise on my podcast. He's concerned. Tom Cotton, people like that who have power in the Republican Party, but are not necessarily right now in leadership.
Within the Republican Party, do you kind of have to pick a side? I'm a MAGA guy, or I'm just a traditional Republican? Like, how does that breakdown work? And where do you fall in line there?
So what's happening in the Republican Party is, think of how strange it is. When I came to America in 1978, the left and the right were quite different than they are today. If you met a leftist on a campus, I was at Dartmouth, I met a lot of leftists for the first time. Here were their big issues. Number one, they were defenders of minorities and the working class. Number two, they care about individual civil liberties. This applied from everything to free speech to abortion, like get the government off my back, let my individuality flourish. And number three, they were against the Cold War, they were against war, they were the peace party. So just take those three things right now. And they flipped on their head.
78, right?
78 to today.
6 years after Vietnam.
Yeah, 6 years after Vietnam.
It's fresh.
It's fresh. And now you talk to the left about the working class, they're like, oh, yeah, look, there's a bunch of morons. Or those guys are a bunch of truck drivers and bums. Make them wear their masks. So there's a hostility to the working class. No surprise, the working class is pushing toward the Republican Party. Number two, civil liberties. I mean, the biggest issue of civil liberties isn't abortion. It's can you speak your mind? It's can you just talk? And on all these key platforms, the left has become the party of censorship. Not just the leadership. The ordinary Democrat wants to shut you down and shut your speech off and allow speech to be regulated by the big tech platforms if possible, but if they won't do it, by the government. And there's all kinds of survey data to support that. And number three, suddenly the left has become, they're pro-FBI, they're pro-CIA, and they're pro-war. I mean, they're even saying things like, if Biden talks about World War III, they're on board. So think of the change that's occurred there. There's a similar change occurring on the Republican side. A party that's becoming, somewhat more working class. I mean, when I was in college, if you met a guy who's a CEO of a company, there was an 80% chance that guy's a Republican. Now there's an 80% chance that guy's a Democrat. So no wonder the old Republican guard is used to relying on the business guy, the oil guy, the Chamber of Commerce guy. That's their team. And suddenly those guys are being challenged. And all these new people are coming in. So that is what's going on the ground. And MAGA and the establishment are just metaphors for this really big sweeping change occurring at the ground level.
So if you like this clip and you want to watch another one, click right here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click right here.